The European Union is facing yet another twist in its growing energy crisis as Norway, a generally reliable source of natural gas, has dramatically cut its supplies to the Union. This change, which occurred in late 2024 and early 2025, worsens an already dangerous situation following the disruption caused by the EU's reliance on Russian gas before the war in Ukraine. The bloc's transition to Norway was hailed as a realistic move. However, recent interruptions highlight the vulnerability of this approach. Technical concerns at key Norwegian gas fields, along with a nationwide strike by energy workers seeking better salaries under inflationary pressures, have led to a 20% decline in Norway's gas exports to the EU since November 2024. This drop has caused ripple effects throughout Europe, raising petrol prices to historic highs. For example, the benchmark Dutch TTF gas futures rose by more than 30% in December 2024 alone, underscoring the EU's vulnerability. Energy-intensive sectors in Germany, France, and Italy have been forced to reduce production, placing additional strain on an already struggling economy. Households are also suffering from soaring energy expenses during one of the hardest winters in recent memory, fueling public dissatisfaction. The EU's position raises difficult questions about its energy policy and its geopolitical strategy. In its efforts to sever ties with Russian energy after the invasion of Ukraine, the EU adopted a patchwork strategy to find alternative supplies, depending largely on imports from Norway, the United States, and Qatar. This policy has left the bloc vulnerable to global markets and unexpected upheavals, exposing the lack of a unified, long-term plan. Critics argue that the EU's reluctance to invest enough in renewable energy infrastructure and storage solutions during more stable periods has left it ill-prepared to deal with such crises. Furthermore, the EU's emphasis on moral posturing in its energy transactions, avoiding Russian energy while ignoring the environmental and ethical implications of purchasing liquefied natural gas, LNG, from nations like the United States, has led to allegations of hypocrisy. The carbon impact of LNG, from extraction to delivery, far outweighs that of pipeline gas, undermining the bloc's climate goals. At the same time, its ties with authoritarian governments in the Gulf for LNG supplies call into question the EU's commitment to human rights and democratic norms. However, the situation in Norway is far from simple. Unlike Russia, Norway is a democratic neighbor with similar principles. Yet, its decision to prioritize local demands and economic stability over EU supply commitments reveals Brussels' naive reliance on goodwill and market forces. This issue also demonstrates the EU's lack of influence in shaping its partners' energy policies, casting doubt on the bloc's ability to secure its energy future in an increasingly competitive and volatile global market. Some have described the EU's current predicament as bad luck, the result of a combination of geopolitical tensions, technological failures, and economic constraints. Others view it as retribution, payback for decades of complacency, short-sighted policies, and arrogance. The West's self-congratulatory myth of energy security and moral superiority is crumbling, forcing Europe to face the harsh reality of interdependence in an unforgiving world. The irony of the situation is hard to miss. While the EU has advocated sanctions, boycotts, and lofty global goals, it is now facing the consequences of its failure to reconcile these ideals with the realities of meeting its most basic requirements. The question remains, will the EU learn from this catastrophe and adopt a more realistic, robust approach to energy policy? Or will it continue to lurch from one calamity to the next, leaving its population and businesses to bear the consequences? The European Union is grappling with an escalating energy crisis as crucial natural gas supplies are disrupted. On January 1, 2025, Russian gas shipments to Europe via Ukraine were completely halted, following the expiration of a transit agreement that had been in place since before the war in Ukraine began. This loss accounts for around 5% of the EU's natural gas imports, which is a substantial blow given the region's current energy supply vulnerabilities, almost immediately led to natural gas prices rising to their highest level since October 2023. reigniting concerns about an energy price shock that might reverberate across the EU's economy. The problem was exacerbated by events in Norway on January 2nd, 2025. Norway's Hammerfest LNG facility experienced a compressor malfunction, forcing a complete closure. This facility, which accounts for around 5% of Norway's gas exports, is expected to be down for at least a week. The timing of these two crises created a perfect storm, further tightening an already constrained energy market. The immediate impact was visible in European natural gas contracts, which rose more than 4% on the first trading day of 2025. Analysts have cautioned that prices might climb higher due to ongoing supply uncertainties and high winter demand. The EU's reliance on external energy supplies has long been a source of contention, and the current crisis exposes the weaknesses in its energy policy. Following Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022, the EU made strong moves to lessen its reliance on Russian energy. By 2023, imports from Russia had plummeted, being replaced in part by increasing supplies from Norway and record-high imports of liquefied natural gas, LNG, from international markets. However, these measures have done nothing to protect the bloc from the dangers of over-reliance on a limited number of suppliers. Norway, which currently accounts for almost 30% of the EU's gas imports, has become a vital partner, but its recent supply problems underline the inherent fragility of this. The EU's energy problem underscores deeper shortcomings in Western energy policy. Decades of favouring open markets and short-term cost reductions above energy security have left Europe vulnerable to foreign shocks. The rapid abandonment of Russian gas, although ethically and politically justifiable, has not been accompanied by substantial investment in local energy infrastructure or renewable alternatives. Instead, the group has relied mainly on LNG imports, a pricey and ecologically controversial stopgap that has increased worldwide rivalry for supply and worsened instability. Geopolitically, the scenario demonstrates how energy has become an instrument for leverage in international relations. Russia's decision to let the transit agreement with Ukraine expire is a harsh reminder of how energy reliance can be weaponized. Meanwhile, Norway's supply issues serve as a sobering warning that even the most steady and dependable partners can experience unforeseen setbacks. For the EU, which has positioned itself as a worldwide leader in the transition to green energy, the crisis highlights the gap between lofty climate ambitions and the reality of energy reliance in the near term. European governments are under increasing pressure to protect consumers and companies from rising energy costs. However, the long-term ramifications are far more concerning. The issue highlights basic concerns about the EU's energy strategy and its ability to navigate an increasingly turbulent global energy landscape. Without a significant transition toward greater energy self-sufficiency, including increased investments in renewables, energy storage, and infrastructure modernization, the EU risks lurching from one crisis to the next. The events of early 2025 should serve as a wake-up call to both the EU and the rest of the Western world. Over-reliance on external suppliers, along with insufficient diversification and an inability to foresee geopolitical threats, has made Europe vulnerable. Whether these issues are considered bad luck or the unavoidable result of poor planning, the end result is the same: an area more vulnerable to the vagaries of an unpredictable and competitive energy market. The EU's energy policies during the last 2 decades have been marked by a mix of short-term thinking and reactionary measures, leaving the institution unprepared for the difficulties it currently faces. While the decline in Russian energy imports during the Ukraine conflict was hailed as a significant strategic shift, the